Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has had a revelation. In an interview with the Halifax Chronicle Herald, he told how he responded to people asking for him to spend even more government money. And he said, and I quote, "As soon as you do that, inflation goes up by exactly the same amount." Oh. Right? Right. Why didn't I think of that? My goodness. Spending money you don't have actually causes inflation. If he's in the middle of having epiphanies, has he also realized that budgets don't balance themselves?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservative Party has been using that approach about concerns on inflation to stand against things like national food programs for kids or dental care for seniors. They have stood and objected against and even campaigned against dental care for seniors over the past many months. But we've delivered to over 100,000 seniors of the 2 million who've already registered for dental care the support that they hadn't gotten in years or even decades. But he stands against it with some made-up excuse around inflation when delivering services delivers for Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
He calls his own words a made-up excuse, Mr. Speaker. You can't make this stuff up. He said that when people ask him, "Can you send us more benefits or send us an extra $1,000 a month?" Well, he responds, "As soon as you do that, inflation goes up by exactly the same amount." Right?
Right. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, that is exactly why over the past years we've been focused on bringing down inflation by supporting Canadians, and it is working. For the past 4 months, Mr. Speaker, inflation has been down in the Bank of Canada target range, while we continue to increase supports for Canadians, increase dental care for Canadians with Conservatives that campaigned against, supports for seniors, supports for young people, increased investments in childcare, bringing childcare fees down to $10 a day. These are the investments we're making that do not add to inflation, but add to Canadians' well-beings as they're making ends meet. That's what we stand for, Mr. Speaker.
He's going to blow a gasket.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, he finally, for once, thought about monetary policy. He said, as soon as you spend more, inflation goes up by exactly the same amount. Right. And he is right for once. But repeating the same costly promises that he has already broken does not change that fundamental monetary rule. So will the Prime Minister acknowledge that, yes, the economy is about numbers, that people pay their rent in numbers, their gas in numbers, their groceries in numbers, and that the numbers are too high?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Fundamental difference in perspective between the Conservatives and this Liberal government. The macroeconomic situation of Canada is one of the best in the G7, one of the best in the world. And the independent credit rating agencies continue to give us AAA scores. The federal government is doing well, but Canadians need support. So we are choosing to deliver supports to Canadians with this solid fiscal position. Dental care, a national food policy, national disability benefits, help for housing and investments in the kind of supports for Canadians that he has stood against every step of the way, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, he will stand against all your inflationary policies every time.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, in order to put an end to the terrible violence in the Gaza Strip, will the government and the Prime Minister reiterate Canada's commitment to calling for a ceasefire and a food and humanitarian convoy to Gaza? But will it also support the Arab League in its creation of an international peacekeeping force that would be deployed in occupied Palestine until the creation of a functional Palestinian state? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Yes, Mr. Speaker, we are very concerned about the violence happening in Gaza. through the devastating actions of the Israeli army in Rafah, for example. As we have done since December, we continue to call for a ceasefire. We're asking that there be a significant increase in humanitarian assistance to the people of Gaza, and we're working with our partners and allies and friends in the region to establish a process through towards a two-state solution with a safe and recognized Palestinian state. Yes, we're working in that direction, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Bellevue-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister doesn't have to say yes or that he agrees. I would like to ask him a question nonetheless. Does he recognize that short-term peace or sustainable peace in Gaza will require the intervention of an international peacekeeping force, so that there is a wall between the terrorists of Hamas and the Israeli government? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, for months now we have worked with our G7 allies and other democracies in the world. We have also been working with partners in the region, the government of Egypt, the government of Jordan, and other countries with which we are working in order to try and find a solution, a way to be back on track towards a two-state solution that would be approved, that were rejected by Hamas and Netanyahu. We have to continue to work towards a two-state solution as rapidly as possible, and we'll continue to do that work in this direction because it's necessary to do so.
The Honourable Member from Burnaby South.
The women and children killed in Rafah cannot be forgotten.
Sorry,
we can't
Tinker,
look away. And while the leader of the Conservative Party is a cheerleader for the brutal Netanyahu government, this Prime Minister is offering little more than thoughts and prayer. He can take action right now. He could impose a two-way arms embargo. He could sanction Netanyahu's war cabinet. So will the Prime Minister take concrete action today, or will he keep on walking away?
Why is this a Canada problem? This isn't a Canada problem.
We are horrified by the civilian deaths caused by the Israeli strikes in Rafah. We need to see an end to the violence, to the humanitarian tragedy ongoing, which is why we are continuing to put pressure on the Israeli government to cease its military operations in Rafah, why we're calling for more humanitarian aid to get in, why we've been calling for a ceasefire since December, Mr. Speaker, including in votes at the UN, and we will continue to. We need to see more humanitarian aid in. We need to see hostages released. We need to see an end to this violence and a path towards a two-state solution once again.
I would just like to ask all members to not take the floor when they have not been recognised by the Speaker. The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Just stop.
Embargo now.
Yes, the Prime Minister said he was horrified by Netanyahu's strike on Rafah. But when asked what he intended to do about it, he ran away. What he could do today is impose an arms embargo and sanction Netanyahu's war cabinet. Will this Prime Minister finally act to save lives, or will he simply continue to save himself? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, from the very beginning, we have worked actively to promote and establish peace and humanitarian aid. We are in amongst the biggest per capita donors to UNRWA, and we will continue to be here to help through humanitarian assistance, through medical help, and through food aid. And we will do the work that is necessary to continue down a path towards a two-state solution.
What's the guy smiling in the
despite
background?
the efforts of the Netanyahu government in ruining every prospect of a two-state solution. We will continue to be here. We will continue to find peace.